It's 6 p.m. here in Korea. Welcome to our newscast. I'm Daniel Che. Let's begin with the headlines. President Park Geun-hye is set to fly to Iran to make the first Korea-Iran summit in 54 years happen. She will be accompanied by the biggest business delegation to date. Part of new measures to support job creation, the government plans to hold monthly employment day events and other job fairs to promote projects that connect companies with job seekers. Korea becomes the first Asian country to ink an agreement on space cooperation with the United States. The two sides can expect enhanced collaboration in space exploration and related matters. President Park Geun-hye is set to take off for Iran this Sunday, where she will be seeking to set new records for business deals and open a new horizon on the diplomatic front. Song Ji-sun starts us off with a preview of the president's state visit to Iran.
The last blue ocean of the Middle East. That's how Korea sees Iran in terms of business opportunities. The oil-rich country is expected to grow at an annual pace of 6% after sanctions were lifted in January this year. Korea is among the dozens of countries seeking to differentiate itself in the Iranian market and make the most of the abundant business potential there, in addition to normalizing bilateral trade relations.
We're seeking to bring trade and investment back to where it was before sanctions were imposed on Iran in order to create a new business boom in the Middle East. Another goal is for Korea to play a larger part in Iran's infrastructure projects as the country rebuilds its economy.
President Park will be joined by the largest business delegation to ever accompany her on an overseas trip. The group will attend a business forum and a market with local buyers. President Park will also be seeking to take diplomatic relations to the next level when she meets with President Hassan Rouhani. It will be their first summit since the two countries established diplomatic ties in 1962. The two leaders are expected to discuss a range of regional and global issues, including North Korea. President Park will also seek to diversify bilateral cooperation in areas like health, culture, and ICT.
Diplomatic relations between the two countries have been stalled due to the international sanctions on Iran, but this summit will help lay the groundwork for advancing bilateral relations and cooperation between them.
President Park is also arranging a meeting with Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, which could help set the stage for stronger ties between Seoul and Tehran. Song Ji-sun, Arirang News.
Creating jobs for young people and women has always been high on the agenda of the Park Geun-hye administration. Now it's announcing a new set of measures to tackle the issue, and this time the focus is on resolving the mismatch in the labor market. Hwang Ji-hye zooms in on this part of the government's plans to revamp the ailing economy.
The Korean government is gearing up to take on the role of job coordinator, announcing a fresh set of measures to support job creation for young people and women. The government said Wednesday it will designate a special employment day to connect job seekers and corporations.
At the nation's 17 innovation centers, we will hold an employment day event every month. We will also hold other job fairs in designated industries and promote projects connecting companies and undergraduates. Through these events, we aim to facilitate employment for 40,000 job seekers this year.
The government also plans to provide financial support to young people to encourage them to take jobs at smaller firms. A majority of young people in Korea pin their hopes on landing a job at a large conglomerate like Hyundai or Samsung because smaller-sized companies offer lower wages. Part of the government's plan is to give young people cash incentives of up to $5,000 if they sign up to work at a small or medium-sized company for a minimum of 2 years. Still, experts say the measures are not really hitting the core issue of increasing the kinds of jobs that young people are hoping to land.
Because most of these policies focusing on reducing the wage gaps in the labor market between large companies and small to middle-sized companies and the supply-demand mismatch. But it's not still sufficient for the new job creation.
The government's plan also includes measures to raise the female labor participation rate by allowing women workers to take a portion of their maternity leave while they're pregnant. Experts add, though, the key lies in expanding childcare facilities not just at public institutions but within private companies. as women experience disruptions in their careers mostly due to childcare responsibilities. 황지혜, Arirang News.
President Park Geun-hye hopes to meet with the leaders of Korea's three main political parties after she returns from the trip to Iran next week. The parties have responded relatively positively to the proposal. For details, let's turn to our Park Ji-won.
The ruling Saenuri Party, still taking stock following its defeat in the general election, has welcomed the president's move, saying there has to be a concerted effort from the government and the National Assembly to press on amid the security crisis and economic slowdown.
Our party will do its utmost to turn this crisis into an opportunity. We will do this by closely cooperating with the government and opposition parties.
The interim leader of the main opposition Minju Party of Korea, Kim Jong-in, was more cautious, saying his party would consider the idea once President Park officially calls a four-way meeting. The party criticized the presidential office, saying it lacks a genuine willingness to communicate with the opposition blocs.
It's very regrettable that we couldn't find any self-reflection or desire for change, which should be the basis of communication.
The minor opposition People's Party says it will positively examine the meeting when the presidential office makes an official proposal. The party said it's always ready to talk and cooperate to improve the people's livelihoods, but stressed the meeting needs to focus on producing tangible results.
President Park said she'd lead change and reform while cooperating with the National Assembly by reflecting the people's will as seen in the election results. Now is the time to put the words into action.
At a meeting with the head editors of Korea's news networks on Tuesday, President Park said she wanted to meet with the political leaders after she returns from her four-day trip to Iran early next week. It appears the meeting, if confirmed, will take place in early May or mid-May. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
North Korea is planning a large-scale artillery drill using a replica of South Korea's presidential office of Cheongwade. Meanwhile, the results of an analysis on debris from a recent rocket launch by the North early in February are finally out, confirming that the rocket was not aimed at putting a satellite into orbit, but a test for an intercontinental ballistic missile. Kim Hyun-bin has the latest.
South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff said on Wednesday that North Korea is planning a large-scale artillery exercise targeting a replica of South Korea's presidential office that has been built in the outskirts of Pyongyang. The drill is expected to take place before the regime's Workers' Party of Korea Congress, scheduled for next week. The JCS added that the regime has deployed some 30 heavy artillery pieces to the area, and the move is intended to tighten internal unity and instill animosity towards the South. Meanwhile, South Korea's defense ministry said on Wednesday that there is proof that the long-range rocket launched by North Korea in early February was actually an intercontinental ballistic missile, and not a means to put a satellite into orbit, as Pyongyang said. Analysis of debris retrieved in South Korean waters shortly after the launch shows that the missile lacked an acoustic blanket and other crucial mechanisms that should have served to protect the satellite through the rocket's flight. The finding contradicts the North's claim that the purpose of the rocket was to send an Earth observation satellite into orbit. But refuting the regime's claim at the time of the launch was difficult, as both the rocket carrying a satellite and a ballistic missile have virtually the same launching technology. The satellite Pyongyang has put into orbit has not sent any signals since it was launched, and experts say that the launch was a cover-up to test an ICBM. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
The date has been set for North Korea's first party congress since 1980. The gathering had been used as a tool to cement the Kim family's dictatorial rule in the past. And likewise, the Hermit Kingdom's young leader is expected to officially declare the beginning of his era at this year's event. Unification Ministry correspondent Connie Kim has the full story.
When North Korea holds its 7th ruling Workers' Party Congress on May 6th in Pyongyang, young leader Kim Jong-un will be aiming to solidify his grip on power. The party congress will be the first in 36 years, and the last one was held while Kim's grandfather and the country's founder Kim Il-sung was still in power. Although the specific itinerary is unknown, the party is expected to lay out a blueprint for its economy and defense, discuss long-term projects, and set party lines. Experts are also keeping an eye out for reshuffling within the party and clues to the North's economic development plans.
The degree of personal reshuffling within the party will be closely watched, as well as how Kim presents his pursuit of Pyeongjin policy of simultaneous nuclear and economic development.
Kim Jong-un, who came to power after the death of his father in late 2011, is also expected to cement his position as supreme leader, just as his grandfather Kim Il-sung did in the Fifth Conference. Since the North announced its plans to hold the event back in October last year, the North has been mobilizing its citizens to prepare for the rare Congress and has been holding rubber stamp elections to select delegates for the event. 177 delegates from 118 countries, including China and Russia, attended the Sixth Party Congress in October 1980. This year's convention is expected to be a mostly domestic event, with few foreign guests attending given the level of North Korea's isolation following its recent nuclear missile provocations. However, in an effort to promote the gathering, the North has reportedly allowed some foreign press to cover the event, which is expected to last 4 to 5 days. Given the mounting international pressure on North Korea for its recent nuclear provocations, the event will be closely watched for any indications of new policy directives or messages for the North Korean people. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
Turning to other stories, Korea has become the first Asian country to ink an agreement on space cooperation with the United States after the deal was signed in Seoul today. Kim Ji-yeon fills us in on what the agreement entails.
South Korea and the United States have signed a space cooperation agreement, paving the way for greater collaboration between the allies in their exploration of outer space. The pact was signed by Korean Foreign Minister Yoon Byung-se and U.S. Ambassador to Korea Mark Lippert on Wednesday during their second civil space dialogue. The agreement sets forth the terms and conditions for potential bilateral cooperation in the exploration and use of outer space for peaceful purposes in areas of common interest. During his congratulatory remarks, Foreign Minister Yoon said the agreement aims to put space technology into use to solve real-world problems.
Rather than using the agreement as a tool for zero-sum competition, we would like to use it to jointly address challenges facing the international community and enhance human dignity.
Ambassador Lippert said the agreement would help further broaden and strengthen the evolving alliance between South Korea and the United States.
Our collaboration in space that will be dramatically enhanced by this framework agreement promises to expand boundaries of knowledge, inspire innovation, develop new technology, and will be a driver of economic growth.
While praising the constructive use of space technology for peaceful purposes, Yoon also criticized North Korea for using the technology to further its weapons development program, including its recent test of a submarine-launched ballistic missile. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
Also, Minister Yoon Byung says packed schedule takes him to the 5th Foreign Ministers meeting at the Conference on Interaction and Confidence-Building Measures in Asia. He is set to hold bilateral talks with a handful of his counterparts on the sidelines of that very event. With North Korea expected to dominate discussions in Beijing, there's special attention on Yoon Byung-se's one-on-one with Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi on Wednesday and with his Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov on Thursday. Minister Yoon will also give a keynote speech on Thursday to call for closer cooperation from the 26 members of the forum in preventing further North Korean provocations and to address the importance of the thorough implementation of UNSC sanctions. It's the first time Seoul is sending its top diplomat to the quadrennial event since it became a member 10 years ago. Korea and China agreed to establish a joint environmental center to tackle the growing air pollution problem between the two countries. The center will be based in Beijing, where a special task force will conduct research on pollutants as well as new environmental technologies. The plans were discussed between the two nations' environment ministers on Tuesday on the sidelines of a trilateral environment ministers meeting between Korea, China, and Japan being held in Shizuoka. Korea also proposed an initiative to help China introduce technologies that can lower emissions from diesel cars. China's national average levels of fine dust were over 5 times those stated in last year's World Health Organization's guidelines, and pollution from China has contributed to increased smog in Korea in recent years as well. Japan has reiterated its stance that the removal of a symbolic statue in South Korea is part of a deal on wartime sexual slavery reached between the two nations. Speaking at a press conference on Wednesday, Japan's Deputy Chief Cabinet Secretary Koichi Hagiuda said that the significance of the agreement was to resolve the issue once and for all. He said that in that sense, the removal of the Comfort Woman statue from its place in Seoul is included. He added that it's important that both sides take responsibility for it and implement that deal. Hagiuda's remarks follow comments made by Korean President Park Geun-hye the day before, in which she said the statue's removal was not part of the agreement. We've come to the end of this hour's newscast. As always, thank you for watching.